So, have you heard the PlayStation 5 has dropped?
Yes, yes. Yesterday they had a big, the long-awaited press event that we've been waiting patiently since Sony's been taking their time to release all that information. So finally, we actually got a look at the PlayStation 5.
Yes. And the PlayStation 5, speaking of looks interesting. To me, it looks like a pistachio.
You've seen the memes already, right? I know
I
you've seen
have
that.
seen the memes. I've saw you got the Yu-Gi-Oh meme, you got the Cell meme.
Also, there's the Seto,
This
the
I was
Seto thing.
I was rolling, but finally we got to see the PS5. We saw the Xbox a few months ago, right? Around a few
Right,
months
right.
ago,
Yeah.
somewhere around March, maybe, probably February, somewhere around there. They came in strong, of course, with their titles, but now PlayStation finally dropped. They had a delay due to the COVID. Then they had another delay because they wanted the BLM movement, to
Right.
do what they're doing. So they finally dropped it, and they also gave $1 million donation towards the BLM. So there's a lot to talk about, um, and I want to get your view. And what do you think? What do you think about the whole show and altogether?
So, PlayStation has been taking their time rolling out all this information, right? So, we've been patiently waiting. They've been kind of showing things here and there, but it wasn't really what we wanted. We really wanted to see what the console looked like. We really wanted the price point. We really wanted to see what games. We wanted to see the next generation of the gaming. So this is like one of the first press events that I actually got time to actually watch it as it was coming out. So,
Yep.
usually I'm at work and everything, but luckily I was off, so I got to just sit down and just enjoy taking the content. And I'm not gonna lie to you. I'm not gonna lie to you. I was a little disappointed. I was a little disappointed, and I feel that we've waited for so long that they I guess this always happens with every gaming cycle or every console. You want them to come out the gate swinging,
Yes.
and I felt like PlayStation really didn't. I felt like they took a little bit of a safe approach in terms of releasing what they were going to have on their next gen console. So they started off really strong. They started off with the Spider-Man, Miles Morales. So that got me super hyped. I didn't think it was going to be a standalone. So they're reporting now that it's going to be a standalone. I thought it was going to be more of an expansion, but they decided to go with a whole, standalone Miles Morales, just continuing that story from last year's Spider-Man. So they had some heavy hitters. They had some contenders. I know you're really excited to talk about, and I'm
Oof.
just, I don't know, man. I'm a little lukewarm on it. I'm just a little lukewarm.
Little lukewarm. All right. So you see, I'm actually I'm standing with you on that. I think it was a little lackluster. Everybody already knew in some way, shape, or form there was another Horizon coming. Everybody already knew a Resident Evil 8 was coming, and we're gonna talk about that a little later. Um, so it wasn't anything surprising. Sony, they were talking about Spider-Man ever since they talked about the PS5. We were just expecting, I guess, a Spider-Man. What do you want to say? The better edition. The faster loading edition.
Right, right, right,
And
right.
that's what they were talking about. Then we got the Miles Morales version, which I'm very happy about. And I'm glad it's not an expansion. They already confirmed that it's a true game, kind of like Uncharted, the Legacy title.
Right.
Yeah, so it's expansion on the story, but it's its own story, which is great. But I don't know, man, because there were so many rumors about Silent Hill. I was waiting for that. There's so many rumors about Sony working with Konami IPs. We didn't see anything. We didn't see a Metal Gear. We didn't see a Silent Hill. We didn't see Castlevania. We saw nothing. We saw
Right.
titles that we knew were coming, and then titles that I kind of felt like could be played on the PS4. Again, I already said that. The design is cool, um, but I think they could have gone a little better. It seems like they want to do more futuristic Apple-ish kind of take on it, but they missed the mark. You know what I mean? Like most products now are sleek. Doesn't have weird like
Right,
like I
right,
don't even know what to call it. I don't know what that is.
right.
It's an open muscle. It's a
Yeah,
beach muscle. you know, I don't know what to call it. But in terms of titles, Gran Turismo, I'm not a racing fan. So it looked good again visually, but I'm not really into it. Is there any title that really grabbed your attention? Because they did say a few titles, and some of them grabbed mine. But I would like to go with your opinion on a title that a new IP that
Right.
grabbed your attention.
This was like throughout the whole event. They showed Hitman, and there's been so many iterations of Hitman, and just the way they kind of just showed that out. That they showed the trailer, and then they cut out, and then they had a developer talk for like 2 seconds, and they showed more of that
Another
trailer,
trailer.
which was like, and it wasn't even like it gave no substance. Like it did, but it didn't. So I just thought that was weird. So and we've seen Hitman like too many times, and the one of the ones that I thought was really interesting was the Returnal. I'm not too big on the name, but I get it, Return and Eternal. So you're
Yeah.
constantly, so it was a third person shooter. You're playing as this. She looks like an astronaut. She's going into this weird planet, and she keeps on attacking and then dying and then coming back. And then they
Hmm.
said that every time she dies, she comes back and the world kind of changes because
Yeah.
it's assimilating with her and it's changing and it's adapting. So I really thought that was like really cool idea in terms of just it reminds me of that movie with Tom Cruise where time.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah,
I
it's
know what you're
that
talking
time movie.
about. They actually, not to cut you off, but that movie has like two titles, and now I have to remember what it's called. But go ahead, continue.
Yeah, so it's like Time After End, The Return of Tomorrow, some weird like
Yeah.
yeah, something long and unnecessary. But um, so yeah, I thought that was pretty cool. Again, Ghostwire Tokyo. Now I had seen a couple of screenshots from Game Informer a couple of months back, and we got to kind of see exactly what that game was about. It's kind of like a paranormal meets digital kind of. That's the idea it gave me, and you kind of have like manipulation of Tokyo, and you're able to use these elemental. It's like bringing order back into this dystopian kind of just like you have like these weird ring-esque. I guess that's the best way to like these creatures that are just coming out of the ground and
Yeah.
just so I thought that one was really cool. I was really interested, first person. So I'm pretty sure they're gonna try to implement that VR into that, So that one, I'm really excited for that one, definitely.
Yeah. Um. So being all right. So being that I've back in PlayStation One, I have to talk about this because I think this is the one that interested me second most. Resident Evil 8 is on top, and again we'll get to that. But then there was one title, Oddworld. That game
Right.
was one of my favorite PlayStation titles. Oddworld, Abe's Odyssey, and Abe's Exodus, because it's a big brain game. You know what I mean? Like you have to think about all your movements. How to save your. It's not his family, but how to save his kind out of all these crazy traps. You're talking about like
Right,
bombs and
right.
dudes shooting them, and I think showing that game was really cool. But at the same time, the fan base probably already dispersed. So I don't know if that will even impact the sales of the PlayStation 5, but that was one of the games that I was super interested in. And there was another game, I think it was called Pragmata, if I'm saying it right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Pragmata. And it was like I gotta do research and you guys can see it on the editing screen, but I believe that's the game that the Dead Space writers created. Because to be honest, when I saw that game, I saw Dead Space all over it. Like just how it portrayed itself, the atmosphere. This guy's alone. He's in this spacesuit, and all of a sudden, all of this crazy stuff is happening, and inside his mind, something's going on. And then out of nowhere, the very ending, he's on the moon looking at Earth with some kid.
Right, right.
you know, I- go ahead, go ahead.
I thought no, I thought what came to mind. I thought that was gonna be a Konami because that I thought not a Konami but a Kojima. I honestly that just it just reeked of Kojima and it just reeked of Kojima and I was playing the other day. I was playing Death Stranding, so
Yeah,
that kind of gave me that kind of isolation. Isolated is just me and this little girl and there's like a cat and the cat's walking around too. It's just
yeah,
like this. So I honestly thought it was going to be something along that, his new Ludens and his new, development company, but it was just like I honestly thought that was gonna be Hideo Kojima just coming out and saying, "Hey, I got
Here's
this new
another
thing for
one.
you." Right? Here's
Yeah.
another. Here's and because that's what we're waiting, and Death Stranding was kind of one of those games that it was just one of those. He came out swinging with that. It was just very weird, but it's just like it's so weird you like it, because that has always been his kind of thing. He's just this
Yeah.
niche creator who just brings these, you deliver packages essentially. Like,
That's
yeah,
that's the premise.
right. It's just like you go to different places and you pick up packages, and it's just time fall and the rain, just like it's just this weird game, and
Very
that's why.
hardcore Amazon packaging.
Right, right, very like extreme delivery service, man. So definitely.
All right. Then there was another game that stood out. Kena maybe?
I
Kena?
think
It could be
Kina.
Kena. I'm not too sure. The Bridge of Spirits, where there was these cute little. I feel like Star Wars created those characters. These cute, those little. It looks like little the black blobs. You know,
Right.
and like every time you defeat a monster, it seems like you give that part of the world life. It's like dead barren place, and then you see her fighting these creatures, and then when the creatures finally die, you see life, you see trees, you see grass, you see the little animals coming back. I really felt like that game visually was Zelda-esque,
Yeah,
you know.
right.
But then again, it also looks like a DreamWorks animation.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like the gameplay felt Zelda, but the animation looked like there was a DreamWorks studio behind it. And if that's the kind of graphic quality that we're getting from the PS5, I'm all for it. I am all for it because that game looked really good. And Project Athia, maybe?
Yeah, Project. That's the Square Enix one, right? Project
Yes,
Athia.
yes,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah.
Project Athia. And that game looked really good too. I'm like, wow, visually these games are looking very good. And that's gonna actually be something that I'm gonna talk about again with Resident Evil 8. So before we get into that, is there anything else you want to say? Because there's a lot that I saw in Resident Evil 8 that I don't think people noticed, and it's gonna be a big topic. And I'm also gonna ask you questions about Resident Evil 8. So if there's anything else you want to say before we get into that, go right ahead. Spill it out.
Well, I haven't played a Ratchet and Clank game in quite some
Yes.
time, and I was really researching because it's like he's going through this dimensional rift. So that's basically the gist of the whole gameplay, and that was gameplay. So there was no loading when he's falling through these portals. It's like this is
Yes.
legit, just like he's seamlessly going through
Going
these.
through.
There's no loading. There's no black screen. There's nothing, and I just thought I was like, no way. Like it's amazing to see that we've gotten this far ahead where developers don't have to hide their loading of a new world behind some kind of like you walking through a long hallway, and that's because they're rendering the environment, and you're just taking this long pointless walk through the world. And he was just seamlessly, and it never stopped, and the
Yes.
action didn't stop, and he was on a dragon, and he's flying through a dragon, and he jumps through a portal again, and I'm just like, not once did it just say loading
No
through
load.
that whole thing.
And Rift Apart. It's I'm gonna play it. I'm gonna play it.
Definitely, I'm definitely
So
gonna pick that up.
yeah, and I'm also gonna play that cat game, Stray. It was
Oh,
very
no, no,
weird.
no.
It was a very weird game, but that concept looks interesting. It looks very
Well,
interesting.
I was looking at. I was like, what is a delivery? It said it was like a delivery cat.
Yeah,
I don't know
it's
what deliveries and stuff like that. I don't know what does the society want to be like. I want to be a delivery man. I want to just deliver shit. Like I don't know.
exactly.
But,
Nah, I don't know. And then there was also Twisted Metal remake. What was it called?
that is, I think, Destruction Derby All Star.
Destruction Derby. Yes, Destruction
Something like
Derby
that?
All Star. Yes, yes. How do you feel about that game?
I actually am interested. I'm very interested because, okay, so you have Destruction Derby, and I remember playing like a Destruction Derby game on PlayStation 1. It's one of those like bottom bin games they used to have, and my mother picked it up and she said, so I'm looking at it, and the concept is pretty cool because it's like you can tell there's a lot of customization, so you can put whatever you want on your car. You can put like a sword. It looked like a blade just coming right
Yeah,
through the middle.
cut
They
right
just
through the
cut right through. But if they hit your car hard enough, instead of you just that's it, the character actually flies out of the car, and I guess you have to
Yeah,
hijack someone else's car. And I was just like, and he was doing parkour, and I was like, okay, I'm in for it.
it
I'm
looks
like,
fun.
it definitely looks fun. I will definitely like just maybe when it goes on some kind of Game Pass, I'll pick it up, but I don't know if I'll buy it.
Yeah, all right. And then now the infamous Resident Evil 8. So like,
Oh,
so in my Facebook, on my Instagram, probably on yours, everybody says one of the games that everybody seems interested in is Resident Evil 8. You know, that's the game that everybody is really like, whoa, this is crazy.
right.
You know, and I understand it because visually, again, it looks amazing. You get this glimpse of a werewolf. It completely turns you off of what Resident Evil is supposed to be, right? Resident Evil is supposed to be biological monsters, you know, created by a company called Umbrella, and you're trying to save everybody. You know, pretty much that's a small premise. You know, getting so far into the story, we'll be here for years.
Right.
And then out of nowhere, a werewolf comes up. You know, so it's like we're going mythical. Like, what's going on? But there's a few things that I wanted to talk about. So Resident Evil 8, if you look at the trailer, I feel like the frame rate wasn't proper. Like when you look at the trailer again, and you guys can see it below in the box, there's certain parts where the frame rate looks like it's staggered. You know, and it kind of worried me because maybe there was a load time. And again, I know Resident Evil 8 is a little far off for release. I'm sure 2021 we'll get a new update on August. Yes, August. But it didn't look smooth. Like, it looked jagged. Especially the part where whatever it was grabs your main character from the ceiling. You can actually see the frames kind of drop a little bit, and then, you know, he gets pulled up, or like really massive stuff. And we're talking about a village full of snow. I don't know what it is to program snow, but I can imagine it must be one of the most difficult things. You know, footsteps, you know, when snow spreads, or like if you're running through it, or if you're shooting by it, like all that particle stuff. So I can imagine how much work the PlayStation or Xbox would have to do to render, you know, that kind of stuff. We also found out that Chris Redfield is back, everybody's Resident Evil favorite. He seems different. You know, he seems lost, disconnected. A lot of people keep calling him evil, and I don't think that he's evil. I think he's disconnected. I don't think he knows what he's doing right now. You know, I mean, maybe you've seen the trailer.
Right.
You know, I don't know how much lore you know of Resident Evil, but how did you feel about what you saw?
Okay, so I am a Resident Evil. I didn't, unfortunately, when it came out for like PlayStation 1, I wasn't able to enjoy all that. So I missed out on the Resident Evil 1, Resident Evil 2, and 3. To get back onto like the Resident Evil 8, I know you're the Resident Evil fan expert,
Yes.
you know, and so I watched it. I played Resident Evil 7. I played it into its entirety. I didn't download the DLC. I didn't get into all that. But I remember at the end when you finished, you know, fighting that big mold
Yeah,
monstrosity, right?
Grandma
They-
mold.
Right, right. They have, so you see Chris at the end, and his design was. We were like, wait a minute, that's who? Chris who? That's not the Chris we grew up with. This is somebody completely different. So now that I'm going back to the Resident Evil trailer, you know, it's like you said, it's very reminiscent of that Resident Evil 4. They're in a village. It's like this, you know, this architecture, and there's a lot of things if you actually watch it, because I actually watched it slower so I could be on par with you with this conversation, because I was trying to pick out a lot of things, you know. It was very just kind of like, wait a minute. So you see Chris and his demeanor is just, you know, so then you could see like, was that Chris Redfield we saw earlier? Was that just, maybe that's not Chris Redfield. Maybe, you know, Chris actually, you know, they try to, you know, he saw what was going on with the newly formed Umbrella, and it was still more of the same. And he went to this village to investigate, but he had this dark. I'm like 10 seconds in, he just like he murked somebody like right
Yeah.
there on the floor. I'm just like, wait a minute, what? What's going
And
on?
that somebody, if I'm correct, is Ethan's wife.
Really?
That's
No
why he says,
way.
"Why?" Yeah, that
Yeah.
was Ethan.
Wow. That's crazy. That's crazy. I can't. I can't.
You see what I'm saying? So I don't know if he's disconnected with reality, because just like you said in Resident Evil 4, that's what it was. Everybody was plagued. Everybody had this virus in them being controlled by somebody else. What if, like you said, Chris went over there because of something Umbrella related, and he got caught? We don't know. You know what I mean? We have no idea. All we know is that right now Ethan is our main character. His wife got shot by Chris, and there's a werewolf running around. That's all we know.
Right.
That's to sum it up. That's really all we know, and I am excited for it. I'm excited to see what it is. Again, I'm gonna show you guys another clip of that frame rate. I hope they fix it. I'm sure they will, because again, it's early stages. It's probably still in pre-alpha. And then they'll just start cleaning up frame rates, and they'll start cleaning up everything else. But that brings me to pretty much our last topic. We'll still have a few tidbits to talk about, but frame rates and console designs and what's inside of it. So the question you hear a lot is, what's the price point? What do you believe is the price point, right? And how do you feel about that before we get more into it?
Well, it's kind of we saw the specs. I know we're going to get into that a little bit deeper, a little bit later on, but we saw the specs. So we already know what kind of powerhouses we're dealing with, the Xbox side and, the PS5, and they're saying that basically this can, stand up to your PC. That's really, them trying to push the envelope, trying to give developers and publishers more free range, more, giving them the ability to manipulate and use and take their hardware really to the next level, next level gaming,
Yep.
So, but it's very tricky, it's a lot of factors that come into it because, it's, but the speculation, why hasn't PS5 said how much we're selling for?
Yep.
And, you look at that, I'm like, well, why? We already know what's in there, but there's always competition. They're waiting for Microsoft to be like, look, listen,
Absolutely.
we're selling this for $5.99, or because remember when initially when it was the PS4 and the Xbox when they came out a couple of years ago, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, PS4 underpriced their PS4 on their Xbox.
Yes.
And that ended up, in the long run, being profitable for them, because not only were more people buying, they were able to push more units. So in the lifetime of the PS4, it actually outsold. And I think right now the data shows that PS4 has outsold Xbox like exponentially, by a lot. So when you look at that, you kind of see, well, does PlayStation stay true to that and just like, hey, listen, we're gonna give it to the most people we possibly can, and then start banking on these exclusivity deals and start, hey, look, we can get it to more people. And because remember, they have to see. Remember when Xbox said, well, we're gonna have DRMs on our games, and we're not letting anybody play unless you have. PlayStation was like, no, we're gonna throw a jab and be like, you can share your game with whoever you want.
Share your game.
And it was just a backlash on Xbox. Like, how could you do that to us? We bought it, so we should be able to do what we want with it. Yes. So in terms of pricing, it could be in this market, it's like you have the hardware, but you don't want to put it, because the reason why people go into consoles is because they can't afford, or high-end PCs. I bought a PC for $1,500. You don't have that kind of money lying around. So it's like, and especially with things with like COVID and things that have happened. So the economy is very different now. We're in a different space. So does somebody who has just gotten off of unemployment want to start shelling out $500, $600, $700 on a console? And how will that affect their sales? So it's I think $4.99 would be that sweet spot for them. Mm-hmm. Maybe raise it up by $50, maybe, but I don't see them going. If they go $5.99, $6.99, like that's.
I don't see it happening.
I don't know.
If you was to buy something like this again, if you was to build something like this, you're definitely looking at least $1,300, cheapest. So even if Sony was to sell it, let's say for $700, which they will not do because it's not a smart idea, I understand.
Right.
But your average consumer will not. You know, your average consumer will be like, there's no way I'm not going to spend money on this. Do you feel for the average consumer, you know, not your pro gamers, but for your average consumer, do you feel that it should be a day one purchase?
It's hard, you know. It's just like you want to be on the forefront. You want to be, but you know, we've been through this so many times. When that comes out day one, a lot of the stuff you won't have access to it. A lot of those games, a lot of those exclusive games coming out, they're not going to be available to you. So I would like to see it more in the wild and see, you know, what are you willing to offer me? Can I wait? Will they, you know, because this is always evolving, and they could be like, oh well, we have a price drop or whatever. So I definitely would advise and just wait it out a little bit, look at, you know, but if you are dead set, you know, just really look at what they're giving you, offering you, and then you make that investment. But I definitely would wait.
Yes, and there you guys have it. I mean, I also agree. I believe the average consumer should wait, because I mean, you're gonna be playing PS4. A lot of those titles is probably gonna end up on PS4, you know, in some way, shape, or form. Backwards compatibility, we're still not even sure of. Right. You know, so for a parent to go out their way and try to get their child the PS5, and that kid sees more use in his Nintendo Switch or the Xbox or the PlayStation 4, it's a waste of investment. And I can't agree with you anymore. And you know, this has been great, you know, a great topic, and I'm glad to do this with you.
Thank you, brother. Thank you, brother.
That's been awesome, and we're gonna see many more of this. This is our first podcast, guys, and video, and you can see, I mean, you can hear it on, you know, your regular podcast channels, iTunes, Spotify, and all that good stuff. You'll see links at the bottom. You know, any last words before we head out, brother?
No, I want to thank you for giving me the opportunity to talk about something that I truly love, and I spent a lot of money on it, and I want to talk about it because it's just, you know, it's. I think the last study I had looked like 1 in every 5 homes has some kind of gaming device in their home. So I definitely am honored, and I thank you very much, and I hope to get just more content and just get on the grind.
Absolutely. And guys, that is your first G&G production. We will see you later. Peace.